Hello, this is Christian here, back with another guitar mini lesson or tutorial here. And I wanted to go over a little bit about harmonics, that pinching, screaming sound on the guitar, all right? There's a lot of videos on it, there's a lot of tutorials and lessons and such, but I feel like there's a lot of confusion with like how to execute it, what they are, how they work, why they do what they do, and also many different types of harmonics too, right? So I was hoping to be able to go over that, go over a little bit of everything, so that you can have a better understanding of what's actually happening, so that you can know confidently how to execute them and when and why. All right, so let's talk about that. So what are harmonics? Like I said, they're come from prefix talking about something being harmonious. That's where you have similar frequencies, if you will, pitches and notes that are in similar frequencies with each other. Say like perfect octaves. It doesn't get more perfect than that, right? If I have an E and I have a higher octave E and they're like perfectly in sync with each other, they're going to do the same thing. What's happening is, sound pitches are sound waves. So when you have a lower pitch, like it's measured on a I forget what it's called, like lie detector test things. Whenever you have something that measures frequency or sound, a low pitch, boom, whatever it might be. I don't know if I sang an E or what, boom, yeah. It would have like a bigger, more open waves. And if you have something that's like higher pitch, you're gonna have smaller, shorter waves. Okay. The faster the waves, the higher the pitch. The bigger the waves, the lower the pitch. Boom. Well, now you got math involved, because let's say you got a sound wave going X amount of, whatever the distance is, height-wise, length-wise. If you have a pitch going exactly twice as fast as that, you have an octave, all right? Because it's doing the same thing, just twice as much. So it's literally the same frequency, it's the same vibration, it's just twice as much. That is why octaves do what they do. If ever you're like, wait, why do I have an E that sings the same, but it's like a higher version of that note? That's why we only have so many notes in the world that exist, 12 Western tone scale notes, because by the time you get to that next higher note, it's doing the same thing the first note did, it's just going twice as fast. There's only so many numbers before you start getting to divisibles where they're not prime numbers anymore, right? They're divisible by a certain even number, if you will. So that being said, that's kind of the first step to understanding harmonics. Right now, with all math, it's not always divided by 2. It's not twice as fast. You might have something going perfectly 1.5 times as fast, or every third. It might be going 3 times as fast. This is where you got some, major thirds involved, or perfect fifths, where it's like, it's still perfect, or they might cross over each other perfect like this, right? They might not be going at the same time, but they might cross over each other, right? That's where you get some harmony. Some like perfect fifths, perfect fourths, what have you. Major thirds have a lot of relations, but they're not perfect, okay? So when you have 2 notes that harmonize, but they're 2 different notes, like E and A, right? Or G and C, okay? It's not the same note, but they sound so good together because they are being perfectly opposite of each other, if that kind of makes sense. So you have, let's say like E and E, right? Or you'll have E and B that harmonize real well. I might not be perfectly in tune, but it's supposed to be a perfect fifth, right? Or E and A, a perfect fourth, which is just as perfect, because if you invert a fourth, it becomes a fifth. If you invert a fifth, it becomes a fourth. Some of you may know that. We're not going to go into inversions or anything like that. But notes that harmonize together, okay? So where you start getting these these harmonics involved are going to be notes that have frequency relations with each other, and you're not doing the full vibration. You're kind of canceling out the string to only get the harmony involved, the relative frequency, if you will. Whether it be a perfect octave, right? Or if it's a fifth, right? Third, etc. So there's different ways to cancel the string out, but still be able to pluck it too, to be able to get some resonation at all, right? So some of the most popular harmonics that you will see, especially with acoustic guitars, would be having open string harmonics. Even more popular, one octave, right? So I got some distortion on right now, some gain and whatnot. What you have is like open E, for example. There's your open E string, your top E string. And if I were to get an octave higher, as you can see, I'm not holding anything. I'm not holding that fret. I'm not holding the 12th fret, right? But if I just touch the 12th fret, I get it to ring out, okay? Now, what I did was I essentially cut the string in half. That's what makes the octave in the first place. Not because you're holding that string there, but because it's getting pinned up against the 12th fret specifically. When you hold there, you're pinning that string up against that thin little metal fret, which gives it that perfect octave pitch. Because if you're a little bit off, you'd be a little too flat or a little too sharp. Your intonation would be off, right? So that fret being placed there specifically makes it to where you're pinning it up against that fret in that exact spot. So it's ringing from the fret to the bridge, not necessarily from your finger to the bridge. Your finger's causing it to be pinned up against that fret. So it's actually ringing from the fret to the bridge. So when you go to touch your string to get a harmonic, you technically don't want to touch over where you would hold. You want to touch over where it would get pinned. So you're going to take your finger, any finger, and you just lay on top, not very strong, just kind of, you don't have to be super light too. You can kind of just gently lay on top of the string with a finger, and don't press at all, just touch the string, right? And you can strum real hard to get a real definite frequency sound, because if you're soft, it might not work as well as if you're really strum it, okay? Now, a big thing that people think they have to do is like strum the string and come off super quick, like it's a timing thing. It's not so much a timing thing. You can actually chill on the string as long as you're real gentle. You could just sit on the string and you could pluck real hard and then you can come off afterwards. You got plenty time to come off. You don't have to time it so well, right? And I'll show you. So as opposed to trying to time it perfectly, right? If I just, because I plucked real hard and I touched soft. Touch soft, pluck real hard, and then you can come off a whole second afterwards if you want to. Maybe even 2 seconds, right? That's where it starts not sustaining quite as long, but like, you still want to come off relatively quick, but it's not a perfect timing thing. You can go strum, lift. You can literally just go strum, lift. So, okay? You want to touch over where the literal fret is, not where you would be holding on the 12th fret, because the 12th fret is not the square. The 12th fret is the piece of metal. You want to hover over that piece of metal perfectly as best you can, because if you're a little bit off, you won't get that. See, it's not really working. But I just moved this much. It's very picky. It can be a little bit picky of where you touch, okay? So that would be one octave. Of course, you can try to eyeball it. If you don't have a guitar with 24 frets, you could try to eyeball the perfect halfway point between the 12th fret and the bridge. And that would theoretically be where your 24th fret is. You could try to touch there to get 2 octaves, but it's even more picky, more specific. Hence, might not work perfectly. You can see, you gotta find a sweet spot. Oh, there it is. And there's 2 octaves, right? Could use your other finger to touch, right? That was more a third, a high 3. But you can use your finger to touch the string and pluck right behind it with either a thumb or with the pick. Right? This is how I usually do it, where I'll touch the string and I'll pluck behind it. That's actually arguably more useful, because if you're using this hand to touch the harmonics, you can't fret a note and then touch a harmonic. Some people can. I've seen it where they fret a note and they reach real far with the pinky. If you're playing a higher note, it's easier to do because you don't have to go as far. But if you're playing a note way down here and you got to touch over here, man, you're going to have some trouble trying to do it with the same hand, right? You're trying to use your thumb or anything creative that you can do. More power to you, right? You're the performer. But what's easier for me is if I use my strumming hand, now I can freely go wherever I need, because it doesn't matter where you strum, necessarily. It doesn't necessarily matter. You might have to pluck a little bit harder because it's not ringing as hard. But it doesn't necessarily matter where you strum as much as it matters where you touch. So I could fret a note somewhere like here, and I could go to its 12th fret, which is a typical guitar like this, a Strat, Tele, anything like that, is gonna show you with the fret markers is plus 12, right? So like my second fret marker dot right here is the same as my second fret marker dot over here after the 12th fret. My 12th fret looks different. My singular dots are gonna look the same as my singular dots over here. They're gonna be the same note. So on the B string, second dot, it's gonna be the same as the B string second dot up here. This is an octave higher of whatever note this is. E, by the way. This would be E on the B string. And here's an octave higher B. I'm sorry, E on the B string. Okay, let's say I'm playing F on the B string. That's gonna be the 6th fret of the B string. All right, so I go 6 plus 12, I should end up on F over here, which is, I just see it as past the second dot. So past the second dot by 1 fret, all right? That's important to know, because whenever you fret that note, let's say I'm fretting F, I go to touch F over here, and it's gotta be very specific for it to be an octave higher harmonic, right? So here's my normal F, and then I do a harmonic. There we go. Not very perfect with it myself, right? You could use your thumb, like such. You can use your finger, okay? And that is just a simple one way of doing harmonics, right? So what some people will do is make a chord shape like this. Like here's F major with a bunch of 1, 3s, and 5s, right? And then you would go plus 12 of each note. You just imagine the same shape over here and you just follow that, okay? Kind of like that, okay? Or whatever it might be. You might do the C shape, so you gotta go over here and do the octave higher, okay? So whenever people are using this hand on the 12th fret, they're just going plus 12 of the open string. But you can go plus 12 of any string of any fret if you use this hand, and you just kind of have to, you can either eyeball the halfway point of the string, or you can look at the fret marker and that'll show you the exact halfway point of what string you're holding, okay? That's 1 octave higher harmonic, okay? You could do fifths, where you go to wherever the 5th is, like the 5th of the open string would be 7th fret. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm talking perfect 5th, right? So same thing, whatever you're fretting, like I'm doing A, for example, on the high E string, okay? And then I'm not gonna go to plus 12 to get 1 octave. I'm gonna go to his 5th, which is E. By the way, I'd have to go to E on this same string and get a 5th higher, okay? That's where it gets a little specific. Okay, it does get more picky too. The more imperfect a frequency that you get, from an octave to a perfect 5th to a major 3rd, maybe a minor 3rd, if you can get that sound to come out depending on your gain, that's where it gets real specific, okay? So there's not just, that kind of refers to pinch harmonics, right? When you're strumming, and a lot of people use the edge of their thumb to cancel out the string and let their harmonic ring, right? And like that. I like using the front of my finger. That's just something I've always done. I was always influenced by Eric Johnson growing up, and I've watched him do a lot of those. Like in his piece, SRV, his tribute to Stevie Ray Vaughan, he does a lot of those touch harmonics like that. And they just always, you know, influenced me and sparked me a little bit to give that a try, okay? There's also slap harmonics, which you might have seen. It would be taking the whole chord, like this, for example, this is a G flat, right? In the E shape. And the chord itself is like that, right? I might be a little bit out of tune. But you would take your hand and simply, I use just one finger. It looks like I'm using all my fingers. I just take one finger and I slap at the 12th fret of whatever I'm holding. You might want to do it at an angle because you're holding different frets, right? It's not all linear. So instead of one fret, you're kind of trying to hit a couple different frets at an angle. And if not all of them are an octave higher, that's fine, right? You get a blend of some of them being an octave higher, some of them having that harmonic kind of sound. Of course, you can do the 5th as well, like I've said before. Right, and some of them will be harmonized and some won't be, okay? So you get those as well, where you can do chord shapes. Right, and you get these interesting kind of roaring sound with harmonics and open strings, okay? There's also the obscure harp harmonics. I don't see as many people using them anymore, where they use their hand to arpeggiate strings, and they use their middle finger to just touch some of the strings at the 12th fret to chime some of them, but not all of them, right? So if I were to like a suspended second right there, right? Okay. I use middle finger. Now I have seen other people like acoustic guitarists where they don't use a pick at all, they're just using their hand. They might use their pointer finger and just touch with their pointer finger on a certain string and pluck with their thumb and middle finger, right? Which is totally doable. I forgot what key I was in for a second. But, okay. I'm personally used to like hybrid picking techniques where I used to pick and my fingers at the same time, right? Okay. And sometimes when jumping to harmonics, I would just put the pick away and just use middle finger and these fingers to pluck a little bit, right? If I want a softer harmonic, if I want more of an attack, I'll use the pick and I'll use my finger for more of a heavier attack harmonics, right? If I want to do one octave or a fifth or what have you, right? So that's a little bit on harmonics and how they work, where it's going to take practice. You don't always just jump to it unless you're lucky, right? You jump to it, hey, let me give it a try, and you get it perfect on the first try. No. I've had to myself sit down and say, whoa, what in fact is going on there? How do you make a guitar whistle like that? You have to touch it just right. You have to pluck it just right. You got to get a feel for it until it becomes like walking or like riding a bike a little bit. And even then, you won't always be perfect, right? You might be able to land some of those harmonics and you might miss a few of them, but you get more and more accurate with them the more you feel just how to sweet spot touch them gently. Again, you can pluck hard, but you want to touch real gently, right in the correct spot, the sweet spot, to be able to get that harmonic. Because if you're off, it might not really work. You can see as I touch in different spots, I get less and less harmonious. If it's a major second or if it's a minor third, it's not quite as perfect of harmony as it is perfect fifth, perfect octave, which is ones that most people usually use. And they're easiest to do. Okay. I hope this video was helpful, discussing over harmonics. Like I said, it's going to take a little bit of time to mess with them and work with them a little bit. I wish I had somebody to explain them more to me. I had to kind of figure them out on my own and walk the walk. But for the most part, it's just going to take experience and kind of feeling them out and experimenting with them, using the edge of your thumb, using your fingers, touching the strings. You'll see people with tap harmonics where when they lift off, they're really just kind of like the stickiness of their finger kind of causes that harmonic a little bit. So I encourage you to just experiment with it. I wish you all the luck of success with using them in utilization to music. I appreciate you tuning in if you did. If I helped anybody at all, even if it was just one person out there in the world, then this was totally worth making. But until then, otherwise, I will see you in the next video, tutorial / lesson. So thank you so much again, and I will see you around.